So far, so good? Yeah. Okay, so we have Christine's here. So let's start from the very beginning. Create a new file. Let's do it. Let's do the width, 19 by 13 inches. So it'll be a horizontal layout. CMYK is great, 300, of course. And save it immediately. And I'm going to save it in my design folder. And let's call this logo exercise _01. And in most cases, most defaults are always good in Illustrator, or I should say all of Adobe. So I'm going to get this a little smaller. Get as much real estate as you can when you're working. We'll come back to brushes. Okay, so I'm going to use my initials. You could use the 2. And when you do use the type tool, make a box. And it will give you all kinds of Latin. And I'm just going to do D. And I'm going to start with the capitals for the first one, just like the other letter. And you can come up here and make it be like 300, like that. And I can make it bigger. Okay. Now remember, this exercise is because this shape that you have here theoretically could be one of your silhouettes. Do we all get that? Thumbs up.
Yes, I get it, because I want to.
Okay.
I'm going to incorporate a U in mine.
Okay, and anything, this is just literally play.
Mm-hmm.
This is just for us to walk through the tools, but I want you to understand that I'm using 2 letters. You could use 2 silhouettes, and then the more that you bring in the type and so forth, you can incorporate the type. So this is where you're just playing with exercising, and the name of the game is to find that happy accident that happens. Okay, so with this letter, I can, come back, Control Z or Command Z, whichever one you're on. So that's one letter for me. And I'm going to duplicate this because I might want to use it as an outline, right? One will be an outline, one could be a stroke. So it's good to always have the 2. So I'm just gonna, so right now I'm gonna lock the one that I don't want to mess up. And you don't actually have to lock, you can just turn it off. So sometimes I like to just turn things off because when you lock it, you can't grab it. So I just turned it off. Turn them both off because I'm gonna do the next one. And I want that one to be my last letter, which is K. So you want to take your T, and if you do place it down, make that box. And as you can see, I can't do anything because I need to make a click here and need to make a layer. Whoops. Box again, 500, K. And yeah, I'm going to keep this one. Now you can choose a font. Don't forget, you have fonts. Fonts up here would be as we go along, and we will have a conversation about fonts. Let me, first of all, get this so you can see this. You do have to select it to be able to see it change. Highlight it. And then you see, as I go down, let's get this. What's hard about it is trying to, again, Control Z, is to move it out of the way so you can see this. And delete what you don't want. And let's move the space bar. Remember, space bar moves it over. And now again, let's come up here. And you can use the arrow key, and it can bring down to show you exactly what your K can do. And K is kind of abstract, right? If you don't put it in a word, it kind of looks weird. So you choose what you like. Solid is the best, not too thin, not too thick, but you can change up the bold. You want to keep it the same typeface though. But if you want to have fun, you can also change the typeface, you know? When you're playing the sandbox, there are no rules, except you can't throw the sand. That's rule number one. You cannot throw the sand. And so I'll keep this thin and bring this back over. And let's go to my other one. Let's turn this one on. This is a cumin, and this is myriad. So I'm going to change that, highlight it. Oh, don't want the two of them. And there we go, a cumin. And usually if you have one, and there is, wow, never knew that about a cumin. That's interesting. And I'll go for a big black. Okay. And contrast is good. And now I have my K, right? DK. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse it. So this is what that contrast is. Remember, I can't jump to it because Zoom won't let me switch screens. But remember what I showed you. There was contrast. One was uppercase, one was lowercase, one was thin, one was bold. So you're always thinking of those things, or positive, negative space, and so forth. So on this one, I'm going to turn it to be a stroke. But I do want the middle to be white. So I'm going to select this. Now that's black. I'm going to double click it. And remember, with your color window here, you can turn on the web colors to white. So now I have my font to be the color size that I want it to be. And a couple of things is, so now that I have this for my two layers, and I want to show you this right here. I can bring this layer, you see how these are all separate layers? The way to bring them in together is, first of all, let's get a duplicate. And let's bring this down to the other duplicate, and let's turn that off. So now I have my duplicate. And on here, again, I can highlight this to duplicate again, because I'm going to be doing a couple of things. So I'm going to duplicate. So right now, I'll turn those two off. But the point to be made is with this one, I can drag this into this layer. So I don't want them to be in separate layers, because in some cases, you can't do certain tools like the Pathfinder cannot be in two separate layers. So the way to do that is you can drag and drop this little highlight mark here and drag and drop it in. Now I have them in one layer, and I could get rid of that layer. So now I have the two of them here, and that's what I want. And that's the best way to move one path into another layer is to move that box as such in the direction that you want it to go. So now what I want to do is I want to proportionately see how good my scale is with what I have. So this is a little not as big. So I'm going to go to my E. E is remember, E is scale. So when you roll over, you can see the shortcuts. So I like to know my shortcut, and E in Illustrator is for scale, and T, Control T, is scale in Photoshop. And very important, I'm going to shout out to all of you. What's the most important thing when you scale an object in Illustrator?
It's the shift key.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. Exactly. That is not the case in Photoshop. They switched it. Didn't switch it. It used to always be in both programs. They have taken that away. That really confuses me now. Anyway, so shift key always in Illustrator. E and shift. So shift key is down. Always, always handles, not the sides. Handles, the four corners. And I just want to get it a little bigger so that the scale can have a little bit of a reference. So now we're getting into the design aspect. And so now I'm trying to find something that can speak about the design itself. So right now, this one looks pretty good. And if I didn't have the black, you see, I would probably move it, and that loses it, right? Begins to lose it. This is the kind of play that we're talking about and can only happen by doing what I'm showing you. So I'm going to go back to that silhouette. I want to get it back to be the silhouette, because eventually I'm going to get this to cut in. And again, you can move this to the front. Well, actually, it is the front because I can see it up here. It's the white. There we go. Now I didn't see that before. I don't see the lines because I don't have the white, and I need to get the white back. Let's get the white back. And there we go. So now this is beginning to cut into the shape. And again, you can go back to that E, shift key down, and get it to be smaller. So you're sort of just moving things around until something begins to look like it can make sense. You're working with the corners. And deselect so you can actually see it. And also another thing to do is to come up here and go type, create outlines. And then on this one, type, create outlines. Now they don't have that other box that is very distracting. In the sense that it may be. So what's kind of interesting that's happening here that I can see is that these two things could become solid, right? I'm liking that cut, and I could cut this off up here if I don't like this. And I can also cut that. And I certainly can bring this in a little bit more. I'm using just the parameters. But what I'm liking here is the positive and negative space that's happening within here. So a couple of things that we can do at this point is, number one, don't forget to save. And there's a couple that, for me to fill in here, I would need to be sure that I cut this. And that would be going to the Pathfinder tool. So right now, this is what we like about Illustrator. Let me show you. You can use your Z key, just mouse down like this. And this is what I meant about the scratch board that Illustrator gives us. So I'm going to kind of mess this up, so I don't want to lose it what I have. So I can make a number of copies like this, just to keep a backup, right? Instead of duplicating. You can also do it that way. And the way I did that is Alt key down, highlight it first, Alt key. You see how the cursor changes to a double drop shadow white? That makes me be able to have a copy. So now I don't care what, I don't have to worry about anything. And this is one of the main reasons why I like doing digital art, is like, I can undo till I'm blue in the face. And you don't have to lose anything, mess anything up. It's all really always evolving without losing or anything. So I'm going to try to do the Pathfinder on this, because I'm going to get the separate cuts is what I want. So let's do that together. As you are playing with your initials in the sandbox, as we say. So right now, what I want to do is, this is a separate, whoops. Yeah, let's go back to that. Got to remember what I did. Yeah. So on here, this is a separate box. And let's cut this. Let's see how well the Pathfinder cuts this. Because there's a couple of things that I can do to make this become what I want it to become. So I'm going to grab these two, and then I'm going to grab my Pathfinder. And I'm just going to show you all the things that Pathfinder does. So one very important thing is that it must be in the same layer. So definitely know the difference when something is in or out of a layer. So this is all within a layer. These two are together. So if I merge them, look what happens. That's a little bit about where I want to go, right? Now, before I do that, let's go back to show you the other things that Pathfinder does. So that merged them together. But I could also do this, or I could do this, and a lot of things don't make sense, but if you look at it, it kind of tells you what it does. This is pretty close to the other one. This divides. That's a lot like what this did. And trim. And merge. That's a little bit like it's kind of sustaining it on there. But let's go back to this one. And let's see, you see what it has here is it has the white. It has the white, and I can convert it to be the black. And I could also ungroup. So let's take a look at what it looks like in the layer. Like here it is right now. Look what it calls it. It calls it a compound path. The reason why it calls it a compound path is because all kinds of things are going on. Cuts and shapes and so forth. So if I ungroup it, or if I should say release it, then I have separate shapes that I could actually turn into color. And if you use your eyedropper, the eyedropper will pick up, if you highlight this and you use your eyedropper, it will pick up what the other one does. So on here, let's grab it again. So you grab this, you grab your eyedropper and you go that color, deselect, grab this one, grab your eye color, eyedropper, and grab that one. And that's one way. Otherwise, you can just pick it like I do over here. And so here, let's see this one is on the out. This is all the outside. So this is white actually. So if I gave this color and I gave it a stroke that we could actually see, you would see that I would have the stroke. And so now all of these, and you can do Shift key for multiple selections. You could say, give me the pink, right? That would make it thicker. Or if I said black, it would make it thinner, right? One way or the other. And you could boost it up if you want. And again, double click, choose the color, and it could also be thicker as well. Now that is just one aspect, and you can go thicker if you want to match the boldness of things. And then, or vice versa, not too thick, because it would be good if this line matched that line. So if we got it in between, a little too much, and you can change this to 12. So that's a little bit balanced. This is almost the size of what this is on there. So let's go back and fit in window here. So this is how the happy accident process happens. Now that was not even doing the stroke and the fineness. So let's go back to that exercise. So now with this one, I can simply pick this up, bring it over here as one iteration, turn that off so it doesn't interrupt me on that. And it is a group, don't forget. Let's make it a group. I can see that it's not a group completely. So let's get this to be a group. So how do I do that? Is a couple of ways. You can grab it with the black arrow. See, they're all selected here. But I don't have the D, so Shift key down. There's that D. It is here. What is this one? That's somewhere else. That's somewhere else. So this is all of this. And now I come up here to group. And now I can call it, double click it. Don't forget, you can name these things version 01. And turn that off. So then I'll turn the next one on. Z key, mouse down, bring this over, because I like it to be on white when I'm working. But you can make this backboard be white if you want. That's just a preference. Okay, so now we do something different. So now you see, what we're doing and why we're doing and how we're doing it. And it really is a sandbox. So now this time I want to really use the outline that we have. So let's build this outline a little bit stronger like that. Yeah. And I could, if I wanted to make this thicker, I could do object path, offset path. You remember that? There. I like that better. A little bit thicker, a little bit bolder. The typeface didn't give it to me, but you can always make it in Illustrator. So now I want to take this away. So I want to ungroup it. Or actually, if we look at the layer, this one, there's that compound path. So there, I'll just turn that off because I don't want to use it. And you can actually delete it. No problem in deleting. So now I'm a little bit bolder. It doesn't have a thinness to it. And that's why we love, again, object, path, offset. Takes whatever line you have and gives you a rail to be bigger. So now I want to work with this a little bit more in trying to work with the positive negative. Now D is dominant, so that's the first name. So I kind of have to find a way to make this feel like it is a sub of the D. So let's move this down. And you can always ask me questions, folks, if you're having trouble with anything. Kind of like the bottom. And you're trying to just find some really interesting, I like how this line is being carried through. But you see, I'm a little short over here. So now let's take this and bring this so that this is going to be now becoming my cut and dissection. And then I will leave some lines, like in the other one, to be eliminated. So I could lose this line over here. Now, first of all, are these, did I make these? I did make them, they're not paths, right? Are they paths? Are they, let me see. Yeah, they should be shapes. They're shapes. Yeah. Wasn't sure if I had done a create outline on that. So let me grab this. And that's a path. Yep. That's what I want. There we go. And now what I'm going to come up here to that pen tool that had the minus. And I'm going to get rid of this side that I don't need. So there's my point. So I can not delete, but come up here to the eraser and do scissors. So these three tools will cut. And let me show you how fun they are. They are like really fun. So before we get started, I wanted to show you like what this eraser did. So if I did the eraser, if I click this one, it will cut holes, literally holes. It's like a really good cookie cutter. Just cuts. And it, you know, I don't think you can make a brush out of it. No, it's just whatever the circle is. I think, oh, maybe you can. Let me see. That would be interesting. I would be really interested. No, can't do that. No, that was for stroke. I didn't think so. Yeah, so the eraser is an eraser, and there you have it. And it does erase just like this, like it's showing you. The X-Acto knife, which is what this is very good if you want a curve, right? It will cut, whoops, a curve. So you have to ungroup it though. And it will give you a curve. That's really fun, right? Trying to create a wave. And then if you want a straight line, you do have to use a shift, alt key down, and gives you a straight line. So repeat, let's do that again, because that's tricky. If you do the X-Acto without the Alt key, you can do freehand. And if you do freehand, just remember, or even the other way, just remember to ungroup it so you can separate the two. But if you want a straight line with the X-Acto knife, it is definitely Alt key down, mouse down, and now you get a straight line to cut a straight line. So that's the two that we're doing. But what we want is to cut this. And you do have, before you cut, you do have to select. Remember, the computer does not read minds. The only way it knows what you want to do to something is by your selection. Always, always remember that. So now let's go to scissors, because that's what we need. And I'm going to cut right in here. Well, I'll cut on the point. You can cut on the point, or you can cut in the middle of a line. And why do I do that? Because I'm going to grab this and simply hit delete. And now I have this, and I could do two things with this. I could deselect and just select it and just move it in. And there is something we don't want. And that is a little interesting thing. So let's do our stroke. Let's bring our stroke in. That is probably, like if I take that to the end, this is there. It's because it's a little interesting. It's not a straight line. Otherwise, you'd have it all the way down to the bottom. But it was the white, you see. And so now I want to bring back my black. There we go. And get that point in again. And there it happens. See, it's just too much. Now, if you zoom in really far, Illustrator will give you that very, very slight way. There you go. And then fit in window, of course. And so now we're beginning to work with something different. And so I want to eliminate detail. So I'm happy with that. I'm liking this. And in some way, I want to bring this to be down. And there's a couple of ways to do that. You could dissect it to get the white, and you could cut again. So in some way, I am not needing this foot. Let's take this foot away. So again, back to the scissors. Click. And if you're not right on the dot, which is where you really have to zoom in, it will tell you, I can't do that. And so that's when you really need to zoom in, which is fine with me. Isn't that interesting what happened with that? Look at that. Whoa. So that is telling us that this white is freaking out because it's a one shape situation. So I'm going to, again, merge these and see what happens. So I'm going to merge them. And this time, let's do dissect. Let's try something different. Let's try unite. There we go. That's good. That's exactly what I'm thinking in making that separate on there. And then going back. And now, but I do want to keep that line like we have. I want to keep the line solid. And let's bring that to be thicker. Let's get this to be a lot thicker. There we go. Much better. And what I want to do is bring this black in. And so one way to do that is, the easiest way is just make another shape. Point, 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 and make it B. Wow, that's kind of interesting. Wait, let's see what this looks like. Let's make this all black. There we go. That is what I was seeing. So this is where, and then of course, you know, we got to fix these things, those little doodads, as I like to call them. And so on here, you could change the stroke. Remember, we talked about that on the stroke. When you bring this up, what happens with stroke when I do this, right? That softens the edge. Now you may want that, you may not want that. Let's see what that looks like. Again, view, fit all in window. Well, I don't want it too soft because these up here are not soft, but the contrast is good. The contrast could be fine because watch what happens when I change that back to what it was, which was actually this one. And I think it's better with that. So all I have to do here is get my point to come in. There. And now I can decide upon which, like I could eliminate this. Remember we did that initially, but we had that problem, remember? So on here, this is going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. I'm going to say no stroke. And, you know, that's when you begin to see whether you like it or not to have that color. And I do like that on there. So I will probably cut this because I think I'm going to get that twisted feel again when I eliminate this arch here. And then that's when I go to my Pathfinder to give me the dissection. So if I choose all of them, and dissect, now I have everything and I can decide upon, if I hold all of this and ungroup it, I can decide if I want to keep things or not. Let's go all the way back. Oh, one more. There we go. And so here's another one, intersect. Intersect or minus the front, don't forget. Minus the front would be cutting into this object. But I do have these two. So turning this one off, just to let you know here. Where is this guy? Yeah. Turning these two, I can merge these. So at this point, let's do that. Let's merge that. So you see, now I just merged that. And now what I just realized is I have now a symbol that looks like a chat, like a bubble, right? Over someone. And I like that. I like that, how that is predominant. I lost it here. Now, that was something I thought I wanted to have because this one is behind. And if I bring this to the front, there brings that front again. But I do like it as that bubble. Now, I was not thinking of that whatsoever. So it's kind of interesting. And I could round some of these things off to even make it feel more like a bubble. And again, we can go back to eliminate this. And I have not saved in 30 seconds. So now you see how, and I got to stop the recording. We are good. Okay. So this tool is the blend tool. And this is another one of my favorites. I only teach my favorite tools, but they're all, we got a lot to cover. So this is something that is really exceptionally important. So basically the blend tool, and I use this in animation because it creates the in-betweens. So what is in between? So in animation, you have 2 keyframes. You can draw the keyframe, each of these 2 keyframes. And in-betweens means everything between the 2 keyframes. So if I was doing hand raising, right? This would be one keyframe and the other would be keyframe. And then all the other ones would be the ones in between. Well, that's what this does. This creates the in-betweens, the 2 keyframes. So this is one keyframe and this is one keyframe. And so you select them both. Well, first of all, let's double click this blend tool. So you roll over, it's called the blend tool. So you double click, and yes, it does color automatically, but let's do steps, okay? Now, sometimes this is not as successful as you would like it to be, and it's because things are kind of distorted, or they're bent or skewed, or it's hard to interpolate the shape into the second keyframe. And that's when you have to kind of adjust. So basically you want to have these highlighted. I double click, I'm on my steps, 8 steps, that's fine. And what you're doing is technically selecting the 2 points from the 2 keyframes so they lock into each other. So that they know, like, okay, I know the direction I'm supposed to go to that. So let's do it on here. Here's 2 points that are directly across from each other. So you hover over it and you click 1, and then you hover over it and you click 2. That is what the blend tool will give you. And if you had color on these things, let's do that. Let's get this a little thicker. Let's get this to be like that. I probably should make it bigger, but let's just do, well, we can use these 2 colors. And I probably should just do maybe 3 in betweens, right? Because it's going to get too thick to do 8. So that makes a difference. So again, come over here, double click. This time we'll just do 3. Let's do 5. We can always take the stroke down, right? So now we'll come up here. You see how if I roll over, it goes black. It means I'm on it. And there. And so again, once you have it, then what you need to do is to come up here. And yes, there is a blend. And yes, you do expand. And now they are out of the blend mode, right? Because blend is a visual effect. It's taking it out of the blend mode into layers, which is right here. And they're all grouped. And I can ungroup them. Well, I could keep them in the group. Doesn't matter at this point. But this is what I want. I could say I could bring down that point. I can bring down that point. Now, if I did want to do something with this, you can ungroup it, which I'll do. But I do want to say something before I do that, is that when things are grouped, you notice that, you know, the black arrow moves everything. But if I wanted just to edit one of the group, you use the white arrow, deselect, and now you can come up here and just select one. And if I wanted to, I could, you know, shift it around. Whoops. You want to, let's see here. Yeah. Now this part would be, now I'd have to go to group. Let me see if I can do this. Yeah. Only you could select it out, but let me see here. I don't think it's going to let me do this because normally if you select, you know, these are not. see, I'm only selecting one point, and that's a problem. So if these were solid, that, you know, because they're empty right now, you see there's no color. So let's give it a color. Now they all have color. And if I use my white arrow now, I can move it out, even though it's grouped. So when it's solid like that, you can move things separately. So that's just, but you can always regroup it if you don't want to do it that way. So in a way to ungroup it, object, ungroup. And now they're all separate paths. And we'll come back and we'll get the stroke. So you notice I lost the stroke up there because I have the points. Just remember, the tool is telling me what you want. You have the point tool. I'm not going to give you the stroke. Give me the black tool, and then I'll give you the stroke. So things, you know, you kind of go, why isn't it showing me this? It's like, oh, okay, I got the wrong tool, and that's why. So that's what the blend tool does. And you can do it with one line. So if you drew a line as such, as this, whoops, that has a brush on it. Where are my brushes? Brushes. Ah, there it is, up here. And then you had another line, let's just say, I'm just giving you an example. You can interpolate, you can use the blend tool with this. So you can grab the two of them. Again, back to the steps. Now I can do 10. And the difference between the two of these, if you can see my hand, one goes like this, right? Just straightforward. And the other one does this in the direction of the curve. Depending on, so in other words, if you were doing an arrow, it would follow the direction or it would be flat. The arrow would go flat. It's only when it's directional do you really see the difference between these two. So if I do it again, the trick here is to lock in the points. I'm going to lock in these points. And you'll see what will happen here. This will probably get a little messed up because it doesn't know like how to be able to reach for it. So I'll come over here, mouse down on the points. I'm right down here. And there is the line to do that. And you can get it really to be quite interesting in, and you can't get too much, you know, now we're just really playing because you have to remember that, you know, logos have to be really you have to be really be able to scale things down. So I would never be able to scale things down if I had lines like this in my logo. I would lose it, but it's fun to do. So that is the case with that.